My name is Nick. I help direct the events here at Strand. For a little bit of history, Strand was founded in 1927 over on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled until after over 92 years. Strand is the sole survivor, still run by the Bass family, running 400 events a year and housing new and used books. Tonight, I'm excited to welcome Yesika Salgado to celebrate the release of her latest collection of poems, Hermosa. Following her previous collections, Corazón and Tesoro, it examines the path to becoming one's own home in all its celebrations, disasters, births, and rebirths. Yesika's poetry has made her a 4-time member of the Poetry Lounge Slam Team and a 2017 and 2018 National Poetry Slam finalist. And seen her featured in the Los Angeles Times, Latina Magazine, Univision, Vibe Magazine, Huffington Post, NPR, TEDx, and elsewhere. She is the co-founder of the Latina feminist collective Chingona Fire and an internationally recognized body positivity activist. Joining her to discuss her poetry is fellow poet Aziza Barnes, author of I Be But I Ain't, the 2015 winner of the Pament River Prize from YesYes Books. Her play, Blacks, was produced in Chicago at the Steppenwolf Theater in 2017 and at DC's Wooly Mammoth Theater and New York's MCC Theater this year. In addition, she co-hosts the Poetry Gods and is a Cave Canem Fellow. The Blind Pig, her debut novel, actually launched last month, so please check that out as well. Please join me in welcoming Yesika and Aziza to the Strand.
Hello.
Hey, boo.
Howdy, boo.
We're far away from home.
We're very far from home.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Do I have any LA natives here?
Hey.
Yeah. Hi, New Yorkers.
You are all seen. We see
Yes.
you. Yeah. Word. Well, thank you so much for having us, and we're stoked to be here. You know, not to speak for you, but I think the vibe is stoked. Yeah.
I mean, I'm living my Carrie Bradshaw. I was listening to my friend Marisa came to my hotel room and I was listening to jazz and she was like, I was expecting to walk in and see you smoking a cigar or something. I'm Mr. Big for the week.
Yes, that's what. I just had the flu and I was binging 5 seasons of Sex in the City whilst having the flu. And look, it's white as fuck, but it still holds up. There's a lot of gold to be mined from this fantasy of New York where we're living like that.
And living on a writer's budget and wearing all the designers' clothes,
Girl,
who?
Look,
I can't even shop at Torrid with what I make.
Honestly, because Shorty, I remember one episode where it was my Manolo Blahniks, my $400 Manolo Blahniks, but they said how much she had in her checking, and I'm like, that just don't add up. You got 500 in your checking, and you spent $400 on the shoes, and this is why this doesn't exist.
Debt. And they just don't tell us that we have to sell our souls to be able to look good.
Because they don't want us to win. They don't want us
to
win. It's really a tragedy.
And I know that they said sorry that it's so packed, but we're not sorry.
No.
It's an honor to be able to come so far away from home. Literally, this is the farthest you can get from LA. And to see such a beautiful turnout for us, we're so grateful. So thank you for being here.
On this rainy night, this rain-swept night.
Yeah, so we're going to read some stuff for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm going to kick it off with, I'm going to read from I Be But I Ain't, which is a trip. Coming back here, the Airbnb I'm at is on the same street I lived on when I lived here. And this poem I'm going to read for y'all is when I lived in that apartment that had so many roaches and other various bugs that I was set to kill. And this is a poem about killing one of those many, many bugs. And I'm not messy. I'm clean, but the apartment had bugs. My mom asked me to say that every time I read this poem. She's like, Aziza, you going to read the poem about the bugs? They're going to think you nasty. But y'all understand, so we can tell my mom, a bitch is clean. All right. How to Kill a House Centipede by squishing it behind a photo of Mariam Makeba while contemplating various iterations of rigor mortis in my gentrified apartment complex on 750 McDonough Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11233. It does appear to be a strain itself. viral of some design, even violent with symmetry, each set of legs leading up to more sets of legs, and I don't know how to greet it, how to kindly suggest it get the fuck out my house, or lead me to where it multiplies. Is there a nest of these, a hive of these? What do these call each other when in a large amorphous congregation? Do these fall in love and mate, or mate and hatch? Which is further from what I know? Sometimes I can't tell the human preference, and yes, it is the farthest thing from a person, though it could burrow in me if I allowed it, or even if I didn't allow it, which makes it exactly like certain human qualities again, burrow through somewhere that requires synapse before a holler out can occur. An ear canal, for example, a nostril, for example, a non-consenting passage, you know the type, conquered. When I am too happy, I catch a fever and have to lie down, throw my arms into an unbearable position, what we talk about when we talk about the shape we leave this world in. And yes, I suppose I am that interested in the body defeated, or the body striving to say something new about itself, like the position saints die in, neck craned, arms crossed, legs crossed, how they don't decompose. And yes, part of me is ugly enough to want to be a saint, which means I will never be a saint, never die with all my limbs neatly drawn, and I can't say I'd be an amenable corpse, or that you would know how to greet me and my 2 tattoos, perhaps a third before I'm burnt and thrown. And yes, I hope to be burnt and thrown not for any spiritual reason, unless claustrophobia is a spiritual reason. I wake up screaming from dreams of waking up underground between Mississippi, Ohio, Montreal, a thumb, white, and no, I can't say I thought of anyone when I did it. When I saw 4 antennae lead a long insect across the wall above my desk, not the base of my wrist, popping against a paper version of Mariam Makeba, her gray hand on her gray pencil dress, a woman who sang sometimes with her eyes closed and sometimes not. And yes, it is this that I find least human, to sing without your eyes open, like sleeping next to someone you love. It is a symmetry of faith, a nest of this, a hive of this, an amorphous congregation of this. So it is likely easy to kill if you can locate the source. And yes, I thought, when one of the antennae dropped, the other left to twitch without audible pattern, stuck as a corpse to a woman who was often not allowed to leave or forced to stay very far from where she began. I guess you call that exile, which is something I do understand. I thought a colonizer's thought, not I'm sorry, or I shouldn't have killed it, but if I don't kill it now, how will I find it again? Yay. Thank you. Death and bugs. Just something to know as you read my work. There will be death, there will be bugs. So now this is from The Blind Pig. It's my first novel. It's pretty experimental little ditty. It's shiny. You see it's shiny? All right. And then my nails are kind of shiny to go with the book. I was hoping it would be noticed. And I'm just going to read a couple sections from it because it is prose. It'll like go on for a bit, so like don't feel pressured to like clap immediately. There's going to be some time, and I appreciate you. Yeah, okay. What had happened was a glitch. Ancestral nerve ridden to the point of madness. What had happened? A deer and an armadillo kick it on a Mississippi porch, rain coming down. Glitch. There's a you and I, another name entirely. 2. There's saint, not who you pray to, but whose offerings allow you to survive. Glitch. When you're in your dad's apartment growing up. His mother sings La Boheme on the fire escape, no escape for her. Glitch. A comedy store. 2 a.m. peaking. An afro glistens under club lights, sweat of the father and his father, and implantation whole of them. Glitch. Sankofa, I guess, when I'm an I. Tough bird to hit with any number of stones. Glitch. English. A language crippled with the lazy poetry of idioms and no feeling. Glitch. No windows. Casino-like. It's a mental hospital. You didn't lose your mind. You became it. Infinitely worse. Glitch. It was so hot there were dead roaches. I love you, and then it got roaches. You had a lot of last name going on, and I woke up bleeding through linens. A rack of ribs is the style I bleed out on linens with. A messy bitch when I feel ignored or like staying alive. 2 tumblers of champagne and tits out if I want. I wake up with dirt, caked, lined as in caulking between skin and nail. I can't stay awake without breaking my heart. I break into houses, change my name for an interval, see how the other half tastes. The first first time I felt a chill on my face in months. The white man who lives in my head, not far from the white man who lives in a slave castle and would point from a balcony down to a black someone, and that day she would feel water on her body, smell like an ocean she couldn't see for his, for him, for a crippled arch, and rush to the end of the world. Took a swig of Jim Beam and a choir of yielded crops sprung out my chest, where the blonde hairs grow, a dark omen from the nothing black about me comment section. I lose weight in my feet and watch videos of white children shooting deer for the first time. There's no such thing as a fixed location. The deer cocks her head at the child step towards him, loosens the thrill of her name. I believe you love me, until I'm sitting in a bar, fluorescent purple, and I know you're thinking of someone you lived with before. I fuck you until somewhere she is a meter high. A man in Mississippi sees me when I'm walking in Bed-Stuy. I'm just a ghost, niggas, and he's more sure of my body than I am. Smoke socket, liquor bound. I am my grandfather's cursed extension. I am nothing if not my colonizer's bastard cum. I am nothing but. I am warm and riddled with life. Occasionally a deer will walk in front of my porch. Occasionally albino lizards crawl into my home and die. I know this is my dad begging. A skeleton isn't hard to wait for. You just have to clear your schedule. It's tax season and flu season, and I don't say cotton. It's offensive, and the men sometimes have hands so big my throat lengthens, choke me out, and when I pick up air, someone will be left knocking the blonde field. The eye is unreliable, has a birthright with an ugly clinical name, so let's just skip it. You are intimidated by how much pain a body can hold. Your father sings you to sleep on the nights he doesn't play Ken Burns Civil War tapes, the sounds of slaves bellowing Jacob's ladder, the recitation of Union and Confederate soldiers' letters home. Mosquito bites and ant colonies converge on your fingers under your bed. He's not a bad man. He's just a man, and that is sometimes hate enough. You tell him one day that he's not technically an African American because his lineage doesn't go to slave ships, doesn't hail from Ghana and the great Khan of the millennia, the first slim door of no return. Your father yells at you, says he's as black as you are, and even in the diatribe that follows from him, you know you're right and he's less right. He's hidden his iteration of blackness, otherness in your mother, whose people come from Ohio by way of Virginia, by way of a boat from a part of West Africa that remains unsayable because that fascist regime kept poor or no records. When he sings you to sleep, it's a song asking rhetorically, what do you dream? The ants underneath your bed are from the time you ate a Granny Smith apple at night and didn't want to leave your room to go to the kitchen in the dark just to throw it away. You wake up to a line of black legs and antennae making hill and canyon of you, of your sister. Later in life, around the time you claim your father is another kind of black, you recognize the presence of insects in your home as a call to the end of days, terrestrially and of your mind, a signal to a certain inheritance, a collection of names to address your brain, now that every canal and neural pathway synapse has chemically gone awry. Your dad says it comes from your mother's side, the African American side. He doesn't specify. I hear the Rhine Valley is explicit most times of the year. Since World War, what number again? The number for again. We keep doing it. And we is, you know who, is the they, is the againers, the just one more time cohort of fuckdom and fascism. I was 5 when my mom got her first set of all white couches, never exhumed them from their plastic. Some things are better when suffocated. A couch is not one of these things. Things are not breath workers. I should not be able to be lodged in plastic. My mama has pneumonia today, a fever of 103 degrees, which was lower than the temperature outside my cousin's graduation in Las Vegas when I was 12, and by then thoroughly molested and worn to the nub of my own hands that failed. They touched the leather interior of my dad's Lexus, my 2 failures connected to my wrists in the same car I once hallucinated 6 spiders growing out of and into each other after my left hand was impaled by a small wooden stick, too large to truly be a splinter. How my sister and I hated an odd number, decided ugly them all, but 3, a divinity, a church, and there were 3 white couches, not one of which that neighbor touched me on. God bless the plastic magnitude of the zombie child. When my sister almost died of pneumonia at 2, I was jealous. Why does she get to die? Her lungs lined and plastered full. I was so lonely. I almost prayed my molester would stop by just to stare at me until I became a piece of white, embalmed again. The eye is fixated, but not endeared to explanation. The eye is not attracted, but in a polarity locked onto a few moments in the eye's existence. Hi, eye. You are confused entirely by men who dress up even seasonally appropriately as Santa Claus. Eating steak in the morning is American, with eggs American, with orange juice or vodka American. You are American with a caveat. You get anxious in the middle of days that are considered, even by your own standards, joyful. The current understanding you've acquired is each revelation of selfhood is a door of no return, is you going from captivity, a jailed uselessness, to a slave of another god. And this is the hope of evolution, going from smelling the imagined ocean to boarding a boat atop it, a journey however removed from your own command, then becoming American as orange juice, as Santa Claus, as seasons. The more you know yourself, the farther you are from anything you've ever understood. You grow slimmer entering each door, leaving the salt sack cities you once read your name into, hearing the swift echo a pronouncement. Often you are positive that there are 5 of you at a card table dressed in red velvet, competing for the official narrative of your life. Poker is played, bourbon is in glass tumblers had, the soft texture stretching over each body committed to stains and wear. They yell, a bray kin to each auntie and grandmother in the bloodline only invested purely in cruelty. Their nails, talons, barefoot black Joan Crawfords, calling you a useless bitch, a hot mess, a too much, a that nigga won't love you, a you'll just fuck it all up, a you fat and it's not cute because you got a little frame, and the like. You swear it was 10 a.m. just 2 seconds ago, and now it's 1:38 p.m. and you can't understand it. The 5 of you scream in your head as you walk in your black socks, the ones with the words no nonsense stitched into them, into the delicate rain, a water unusual to you. Who owns you now? Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Wait, did I go? Oh no, here I am.
Wait. Okay.
Hi. My butt was vibrating like through your thing, and I was just like, I'm listening. Hi, everybody in the back. Can you hear us? Can you hear me well? I think my microphone's a little bit lower than Z's. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. If my lipstick, Daniel, tell me if my lipstick's all over my face. Okay. I love your book. Both of them.
It loves you back. Thank you.
I'm a proud auntie.
Yay.
Okay. A beginning. I was born, and sometimes I want that to be all the story there is to tell. I was born and there was a parade or a fiesta, and mommy came home in a gown and I was the corsage on her wrist. Papi chugged down a beer, stuck 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled. My tias laughed, tios drank. The cousins old enough to hold me passed me along, one pair of hands to the next. She's here, la niña is finally here. If only that were it, but my story had just begun. So this you staring at me is not going to work. I need to interact with y'all. It makes me uncomfortable when you're quiet. So please help me. So if anything moves you, you're allowed to clap. Usually I say stomp, but there's people, well, whatever, let's scare them. You could stomp. You can yell something back at me. Be like, girl, leave him, fuck him, whatever. If you catch the Holy Spirit, there's aisles here. I grew up Catholic, and I would go to charismatic masses, and everybody would catch the spirit, and I wouldn't, but I'd still throw myself on the floor. So, I'm not telling you to do that, but if you feel like it.
Are you? A little bit?
A little bit. Just to make me feel better.
Yeah.
I was 7 years old the first time a poem got me in trouble. It was about my father punching my mother. It was true, but sometimes the truth is also a lie. Sometimes it doesn't set you free. It sets you up. For your father calling you Judas the rest of your life. My father taught me to love words, to read everything I could get my hands on. My father taught me words have feet. Say the wrong one and it'll run as far as it can, announcing itself. A word stops being yours once you say it. I did not stop writing poems. I am running too. I go far ahead of myself. On sheets, on screens, I am now in places I have never been. I say this must be freedom. So, I recognize a mango right here in the front. How many of you all know what a mango, A mango for me, not like the fruit, but like a mango. And thank you so much for being so supportive on a rainy day. In LA, when it rains, everything shuts down. So, right, if that happened in LA, there'd be like 10 of them here.
No, I mean, people forget that life goes on when there's water from the sky.
Huh? People forget how to drive, you know.
Nobody know how to act.
Nobody knows. In LA, like everything floods with like sprinkles, and it's a valid excuse to not go to work. You're like, I can't go to work. Melrose is flooded, and they're like, what? Okay, and they just believe you. The first time I smoked weed was in the name of love. Ricardo was a cholito with eyelashes that curled on their own, and I was down to do anything for him. It was third period when we both leaned our heads over an apple turnpike. He talked me through the inhale. I looked up into his eyes, almost forgetting to exhale. We hid in the baseball field until the bell rang. When he walked to class, I did not know if I was high or if I was floating, maybe both. We got to algebra class, and Ricardo leaned in through the fog, and I heard him say, "Hook me up with your homegirl." I was back on Earth and in my fat girl body again. The apple should have given it away. Fuck him, somebody. Did I tell you about the time that I was dying? About my uterus and how it wouldn't stop bleeding? The doctors blaming my fatness and me agreeing. Did I tell you about the times I couldn't get dressed because I was more crime scene than anything? About this bloody curse, the stains on couches, showers, underwear, bus seats, the black paste of my sex, my vulva, a wound that wouldn't heal. I almost lost myself once, ounce by ounce once. I ended up in an emergency room and the doctors couldn't understand how I had let it go that long, how I didn't think anything was wrong. They found a growth hemorrhaging. I never saw it, but I imagine it looked like an urn, like that thing that took my father's ashes, the last place I ever saw him. The doctors paraded in and out, reaching between my legs, dozens of men pulling my lips apart, shaking their heads, and I thought, I've been here before. On a back, on my bed, a man disappointed. My mother called relatives telling them I was sick, referred to my vagina as down there, the beast that can't be named, the sin that must be whispered, a red river down my legs, a soiled gown, a dirty secret, and I stopped dying then. It took a while. First came the blood transfusion, then the clamps clawing open my cervix, me strapped to a bed screaming in pain, thinking a woman who endure this, but it isn't to keep them alive, instead to make them a little more dead. How lucky I was. My body more forgiving than I. Why was I so afraid of her? Why didn't I trust us? Hadn't we buried my father a year before and made it out intact? Hadn't we put down our fist and given up the bruises? Hadn't death asked us over and over if we were sure we wanted to stay? Hadn't we said yes every time? Didn't it try to take us anyway? Didn't we stay alive? Aren't we alive? My body said, alive, listen to me. Are you not alive? And I started renaming parts of myself, calling them what they needed to be called. My sex, my pussy, my jewel, my sweet fruit, my loved orchid, my come here lover. Come celebrate that I am alive, that I once almost wasn't. Come taste what staying is like. Dark humor. Say the word dead enough and it becomes a joke. My father is dead. Spill it into a table during a date and watch the cheeks flush. My father is dead. Unfolded like a chair when asked if your parents are proud of your career. My father is dead, 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 and the room flinches. The lights dim. You laugh the kind of laugh that tastes like sandpaper but fills a silence. You continue telling whatever story you were telling. It's fine. We're all gonna die eventually. Ha, ha. That like when you're on a date and you tell people, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like they don't know what to do after that. I'm like, it's okay. You didn't kill him. Like, and then that becomes awkward too because you're like, can I laugh at that? Sorry, this holding the microphone thing is throwing me off, but I don't want to stand at the podium. Okay. Your parents say goodbye while they're still sitting at the dinner table. And they stand with the keys in their hands and say it again. Then they move to the door and then they say it some more. And then the driveway. When the car turns on, your Theo leans a hand on the window and they keep saying goodbye. Mommy forgets something and runs back inside and they all stand by the car some more. And you fall asleep a little bit. You wake up and they're still there. You go back out of the car to play with your cousins. Papi calls you back in. Theo smacks the car one time really hard and Thea waves. You know it's time for you to leave for real. Finally. You wish you had kept saying goodbye a little bit longer. When you grow up and you are a full adult, in love, and love goes sour, you threaten to leave. You sit at the table and say, I am gone. Some days pass and you stand with your keys in your hand. You swear you're going to do it. Weeks later, you make it to the door, say goodbye some more. Make it to the driveway, your lover leans in, promises the right things with one hand on your thigh. You linger, but you swear it's only for a little. Grow numb and forget about breaking up. It's like you fall asleep. You settle into staying. You're all in again. But then you remember why you have to go. This time it is real. Finally, you are gone. But you wish your goodbye had taken a little bit longer. See, I fooled y'all. Y'all thought we were going to laugh? Okay. Are we good? We're getting there. I ate his ass because I loved him. There you go. That's the new movement we're getting behind. I don't know. I gave myself lockjaw sucking dick. I swallowed the bitter cum and nodded when he asked whatever he asked. Sorry if you thought this was like a stuffy event. I let him eat my pussy all wrong, for I moaned in the name of romance. I arched my back, pulled him in for a kiss. His heart was in the right place. Later, I laughed at my friends, and I don't know exactly what the joke was. His awful sex, or me neglecting my body and calling it love. All right, I'm only going to read 2 more, and then we're going to talk, okay? We good? Okay. It might be 3 more, sorry, but they're short. When you come checking on me, know that I haven't fallen into the fire. I picked myself up and said, I can still do it without him. When I heard you had a new girlfriend, I didn't imagine her body. I didn't wish my own away. Instead, I worked, planned, opened a savings account, wrote, smoked on cold nights, drank on good nights. I cut off 12 inches of my hair. I took pictures, booked a cruise, flew to San Francisco late in bed with white sheets. I called men I had stopped calling when I loved you. Bought jewelry, took myself to dinner, the movies alone, a bar alone, went to concerts with friends, stood close to the stage, sang loud with my face to the sky, my skin as soft as you left it. When you come checking on me, when your palms itch at the sound of my name, know that I haven't fallen into the fire. Instead, I became it. Some of you are going through it, because I keep hearing like, yes. It happens to all of us. Let's say it worked. You became boyfriend that became husband. I had the babies and named them after planets. We built a house out of straw. You kept your bottles. I kept everything else. We tied our relationship out in the yard with our parents. Two angry dogs that bark day and night. You still hold me like I can break. And I still cry during sex. But it's love, you and I. We are a mess, you and I. Let's say it worked. We got the life I planned for us. You work all day, and I don't write anymore. I don't travel. I raise the kids. I keep my anger. You keep your drinking. The dogs bark so loud, I can't hear you. The dogs bark so loud. We stop kissing. The dogs bark so loud. You start looking like my father. I leave like your mother. Let's say it worked. We kept each other. Along the way, we ruined everything else. Sometimes you wonder what you're fighting to keep, right? All right, so because I was going to finish on another poem, but I think y'all need this. This is called the Haka tree, and it's a tree on the cover. In LA, these trees are all over the place, and on my block, they line my street. That has nothing with the poem, but just so you know. I just want my own place. Somewhere to burn sage. I want to play my music loud. Have it sweep the floors for me. Want mangoes and avocados on my table. Walls the color of ripe fruit. Couches soft as a lover's belly. I want to keep the door open. A small garden outside. A jacaranda tree just beyond the fence. I want to hear the highway in the distance. Mistake its roar for the ocean. I want the ocean nearby. Mistake its whistle for highway. I want windows with no blinds. Yawning into a night sky, tear-streaked on rainy afternoons. I want books on every surface. A kitchen that smells like coffee, because I don't cook. Pots and plates that clink together. An oven full of skillets and pans, my niece and nephews. Drawings on the fridge. I want a bear that was born a dog asleep beneath my desk. I want to call him something silly like baby or tiny. I want picture frames on all the shelves. A phone ringing every afternoon with my mother's voice. Candles I light when I am joyful or melancholy. Most of all, I want to find a home that isn't you. That isn't us. That isn't that quiet room where we died, where I left all hope of you coming back, announcing that you choose me after all. Instead, I want my own place. And doesn't that sound so damn nice? Thank you.
Dude,
Hi.
Always. Every time. So beautiful.
It's interesting to do this reading thing and then to be with a crowd that's so loving back.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't want to end this, yeah, the ego gets stroked a little bit, but it becomes more than that. It becomes this beautiful exchange where I'm like, I could do this for the next 10 hours. I don't know if they would do it, but I could do it.
But you never know, you know what I mean? Like, this is a pretty receptive house right now.
Yeah, we're good, though.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
After a while, I'm like, ew, all my poems suck.
No,
I mean, like, it's not true, but like after,
it's the feeling, yeah.
Do you ever feel like that?
I
like,
sometimes feel like, oh my God, this bitch is whining again. Like to myself, I'm like, why am I whining again? I'm always so upset, you know? Like, but there's so much celebration in your own voice. But there are some moments where I'll be hearing my own work at a length, and I'm just like, wow, this shorty is really upset right now. She's pissed.
I'm doing something tomorrow, and they asked me to pull some love poems. Yeah. Because it's going to be something for Valentine's Day. And then I'm like, I don't think I write the kind of love poems you want. Like, everything I write is about love, but like, it's fucked up.
Yeah. But also, I'd be hard-pressed, and maybe this is a challenge, maybe this is just for us to find, like a love poem that is on point, like overwhelmingly joyful, and not corny as fuck. Like, can we find it? I'm sure it exists, but that's hard, like, in general.
I mean, I think I have one.
Okay. I don't have any.
No, because in the end, I have the habit of like, happy, and then it gets fucked up. and then everybody's like up here. Well, I do that right now. Like, everybody's up here, and then they're like, oh, shit.
But I love that shit. I love that, like, oh, word, and oh, my God. You know, and then you just fall on the ground.
Yeah, the turn.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I always try to do the turn the other way, and it never works.
Look, maybe these are the challenges for 2020. Maybe this is the next move.
Yeah. What are your challenges for your writing in 2020? Sorry, I'm interviewing you instead of letting them ask us. But
no, look, I'm into it. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I think my challenges for 2020 writing is like to view men and mask bodies in ways that are not just me being annoyed, like not because they need me to do that, but just for my own edification. Like I feel like when I write plays or screenplays or whatever, I write these men characters, and the feedback I've gotten is like, oh, but that nigga's stupid. Like they just always dumb or just like plottering around or like
because they
maniacal. And I feel like I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to challenge myself to be like, is there anything positive I can write about this?
What if you wrote a femme character and last minute you switched it to a masculine character?
This I will try.
Okay, bye. We're going to go right now. Okay, so I guess now it's when we open it up for y'all. And who has the microphone? Oh, over there. So, and this is my little spiel whenever we have a Q&A. This is your time. Take advantage of it, because later when we're signing books, you want to ask us questions, and there's like 20 people behind you, and there's no time for that, and then it gets awkward. So let's not be awkward and talk to me, please, or else we're going to stare at each other for like 20 minutes. On this side. Over here.
Hello.
You gotta make out with the microphone.
Hello. I think is it working?
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. Such a big fan. Hello. It's working now. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think something that I've been thinking a lot about, just cause like, I graduated college last year. I'm 23, working full time, and I just like struggle with like imposter syndrome. And so I guess if you were to talk to your like 23-year-old self, like what would be the message that you have for your 23-year-old self, and like what is your advice when it comes to like imposter syndrome, or just
Where were you when you were 23, fresh out of school?
When I was 23, I graduated from college about 2 years before, and I was in New York, and I was doing a lot of teaching, which I actually really don't enjoy to do. There's no love in my heart for it, and so I was trying to like really make all the writing happen, and I wasn't doing enough to balance my own personal life with my work life. It was just all work life, and I totally feel you on the imposter syndrome tip of just like, am I allowed to be in these rooms? Am I allowed to be in the rooms I dream of? Am I allowed to like make the rooms I dream of? And I would tell me like, you have to. Like it's actually your job to do the things that feel completely not for you, because there are so many institutionalized reasons that make you feel that way that aren't even something that came organically from you. It's like so much racism, so much like exploitative shit that like I would just tell myself like, start making the room you want to be in, and then you'll be in the room.
That's beautiful. Also, another thing too, you went to college, you have a degree. I would love for somebody to tell me after I sat my ass through 4 years of school to be like, you can't be in this room, or to like let myself feel that. Like the torture, I didn't finish high school and I didn't go to college, but I see my friends go through all that labor, and like everything you have, you earned fair and square. And we tell ourselves all these things because of the same things that he said, that like all these other things outside of our own control try to keep us out. But it's so what if you show up somewhere and you feel like you shouldn't be there? You're still there, and eventually you're gonna believe you're supposed to be there. Like I remember when I first started reading, like doing more readings than just the local open mics and stuff, and I would be terrified of things, but I still said yes. And I would still show up, and I would feel uncomfortable and awkward and all of that. But I sat through it, and I went through it. And now, let anybody try to tell me I don't belong in a certain space. You just gotta show up and not flinch. Although you're scared inside, don't flinch, because then people will believe you that you're supposed to be there. And that imposter syndrome, you just got to talk your way through it. And it never really goes away. I'm sorry. But, like, do you still experience it?
Every fucking day. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think so much of, especially this like Western construct, and then to be like a not man person of color, you know, every room is going to be like, bitch, why you here? And every room I walk in is like, oh, you're black, you're young, you're this, you're get out, you know? And then it's your job to be like, not only am I going to stay, I'm going to take your job and I'm going to make more jobs for more people who look like me. Like, it's our time.
Like, whenever everywhere, right? Gentrification is a bitch. But whenever I end up unknowingly in a gentrified space, or I'm in a white space, I don't worry about that, because I know that where I show up, y'all show up. And this is how we create space. This is how we show institutions like Strand and Poets House and other places that people of color show up in numbers, people of color show up for what they support in, and they want to see themselves reflected. So who am I to be like, I'm not supposed to be there, if somebody if my publisher made it possible for me to be here, and they were like, no, Daniel, like, I don't think I'm ready for New York. No, because y'all were ready to come to a night where you see yourselves, right? So yeah. I know you've been ready. Because we've been talking about it. But yeah. Next question? Okay, then ready.
Could we pass it down? Thank you.
So what's up? Thank you for being here.
Of
Abuelita
course.
manda saludos. She loves your poetry.
Oh, your grandma. So let me tell a brief story. What's your name again, my love?
Nico.
Nico sent me a picture when I had just released Corazon 2 years ago, when I started this whole book journey of his grandmother holding a copy of Corazon. And her hands looked like my grandmother's hands. So like I was like bawling in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. But ever since then, he's shared every book with his grandmother. And so I have this relationship with this abuela I've never met. But I'm so happy.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So she says hello. She wishes she could be here, but you know, she out here making casamiento. So my question for the both of you, right, is something I think that is so beautifully done, aside from every poem, is like how full everybody you talk about is, but especially your father. And I think that, like, I know personally it makes me reflect about the relationships I have both with my parents, but other ancestors, like people who are no longer with us. And sometimes I make them really one-dimensional, right? Like either I'm like really angry, or either I like love them without being able to have them here. And so, and for both of y'all, like, how do y'all like really engage with this process of like respecting the fullness of a person who may not be here anymore, and who you are navigating all these emotions with, especially if like, you know, like they're tied to you by family and stuff. So yeah, because I think the way like you write about your father, just like, it's full. It never feels like incomplete.
Thank you. It took me a while to get there. Before my dad passed away, when he was still alive, like a lot of my writing has revolved around my father, because that's why I went to writing, because I was trying to make sense of growing up in a home with an alcoholic father and abuse and all these things. So when I first started writing about him when I was a kid, it was about like, my dad's a drunk and he's like hurting me, right? But he's hurting me because I love him. So that means there's parts of him that I love. So I always understood that my dad was multiple people, that my dad had dimension, like different things to him, right? And I never could I could never like pin it down. And one of my teachers once told me, she's like, a poem is never supposed to tell the whole story. That's what books are for. That's what other things are for. So in this poem, what is it that you're going to tell? And so once I realized that I was allowed to tell different relationships or different moments with my dad in different poems, I found a whole different freedom in telling the story of that, and of my mom, and of my other family members, where I could go to a poem really upset with my mom because she enabled my dad for whatever time, but then I could also write a poem about how beautiful their love was, and those two are true, right? And those two exist. But I stopped trying to tell the whole when I stopped trying to tell the whole story got told. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I think that totally makes sense. Yeah. And I think that like you know, for so long as like a young writer, I remember my dad would always say to me, like, in a joking tone, but one of those jokes that just is serious, you know, as they do, is that don't write about the family, just don't write about the family. And I'd be like, nigga, what you afraid of? Like, it's my family, you know, like I you know, am here as a product of this lineage, all the things we inherit from it. And I think that, like, to Yesika's point, like, everything is that dialectic, is like, you know, my father can do shit that completely undermines my being here. My father can also make me chai tea from scratch the perfect way that I like it, like nobody else can. And it's just like, I think the challenge that I'm interested in is finding those, like, imagistic human moments that make me want to fall in love with this person. That is the reason just because they're my biological family doesn't mean I have to love them, but it makes me want to love them because I want to live a life that is loving, you know, boundaried but loving. And like, I think it makes it so much more complicated when you're sitting down to like braid into your anger those kind of images, and you could be mad as fuck and he's still making you this tea, like, for instance, you know. And like, I think that's what's beautiful about being people in these bodies with these minds, you know, is that like it's infinitely contradictory. And I think like seeking that out is what made it like more fun for me anyway, of just like, because anytime I'd sit down to write, like, I'm mad at my sister, I would show it to my auntie and she'd be like, this isn't a great poem, kid, you know. And it was so sweet, very sweetly, like I'd be like 18 just like, rah! And it's like, you know, there's other stuff going on. And I think like just as there's always other stuff going on with us. And yeah, kind of long way of saying it.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you. I'm gonna get up. Sort of to piggyback off of Nico's question. Sorry, I'm a little sick. I'm getting over it. One of the things that I've connected so much with your poems is your relationship with your dad. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
It's all good.
Because I love him so much. But things about him from his past have come forward that have changed the way that I view him. Him hurting people that I also love. And I think maybe that's something that in a lot of our culture we have to deal with. The patriarchy culture, and maybe our fathers getting away with things and the women having to look the other way. So I just wanted to ask you personally, and you as well, how have you made peace with both those sides of your dad and still respect his memory, but also dealing with those things?
Yeah, so when my father passed away, I found myself in El Salvador a year later for his, and we do this thing in El Salvador called a novena. For 9 days you pray and then you party. I don't know, it's weird. And it's so weird. Like, you pray the rosary, and then you eat tamales, and that's what it is. But so I was there for that, and everybody decided that it was time to tell me how shitty my dad was. Right, and like, because it's my mom's family, and my dad was never good enough for this. It's a whole other. I'll write about that one day, but Tesoro is all based around the men that you like, looking at the men that you love and realizing they're not shit, right? And there's a line in Tesoro, to quote myself, sorry, but it says, I said, I know my dad. I loved my dad. I know my dad's love. I lived it. I know my dad's love. I survived it. And so the fact that those two are true, like, my father loved me so much. He taught me and gave me some of the things what I'm making a living with now. You know, like what gives me the most joy. But he also gave me scars that I'm gonna that I'm working to heal forever. But he was also a very scarred man whose father gave him, you know what I mean? So like, understanding that some of these things we have no control over, and he had no control. I lived my life trying to figure out my dad. I was just like, why are you like this? Why are you like this? 2 weeks before he died, I found out that my grandfather had taken his own life, and my father was the one that found him at 9 years old. And so then that, I was just like, if I had known this while my dad was alive, it would have put everything into perspective, and I would have had I would have whatever you think you would have done, right? But that showed me that like there's so much else at play that we can't, our parents live entire lives before we show up. And then they try to make the best of with what they have with us. And sometimes it fucks us up. And other times, I don't know, I haven't met people that it turns out 100% good. And if you're out there, please let me know so I could have hope. But coming to terms with that, and also coming to terms that it's not my job to fix anybody other than myself, right? And then what is fixing yourself, but it's not my job to go back and like mend like I saw like online that when someone heals themselves, they heal 7 generations forward and they undo the work of 7 generations back. And so if we stop trying to redo our parents' stories and focus on our own, look at all of that healing that causes, that's 14 generations that you have the power to change, to shift, to give a different perspective in. And so I hold that truth, where it's like my father wasn't a bad man. He was somebody who had an addiction that tried to love me as best as he could and everybody else around him, and it didn't really show up that way a lot. But now he's dead. So I could either be mad, and I'm allowed to be mad, or I could just accept that my dad was sometimes a shitty person and sometimes an amazing person. And that's what it is. And I say it very matter-of-factly, but it's a fact, right? And we can't change that ever. And so it becomes a lot less burdensome once you just accept it as what it's the truth.
No, totally. And I think like the word I love using is like, oh, this is just information. Like this is just more information about a person I've known for a fragment of their life, right? Like it's information. And I think it's so necessary to have the emotional reaction to that information. Like, oh my God, this information is making me feel all these things about this person who I was used to feeling only certain things about, only certain joyful things about. But I think when it boils down to like, this is what it is. He was this and he was that and he was this and he was that. Like, I think that's the road to making peace with it. And I think like, truly couple things, right? Like I love Solange's thing, I got a lot to be mad about. You can have a lot to be mad about, like get it, you get into all that. But I think more than anything, to Yesika's point, is like he gets to be who you need him to be. It's your dad. No one can take away the joy of who he was. No one can take away the beauty, even though there is so much ugly, No, the two things must live at once, and that's what's hard. And then you get to do you, like all that is you, like just by being, you're just a product of, right? And then you get to be your whole thing, and he gets to be his whole thing. That's how I make peace with that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That no one can change what he was for you.
Yeah.
Tell poems with your answers. Where are we at?
We got time for a couple of more questions. I'm going to do the person in the back.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm a comedian. So is she. And I was talking with my other friend that's also a comedian the other day. And I love you guys' poetry. And I feel like I do the same thing. Like I'm not afraid to talk about really anything. But then I was talking with my friend and we were saying like, we're talking about certain subjects. She was like, I don't talk about my baby daddy on stage because it's not funny yet. Right? And I was like, I don't talk about my old job anymore. I don't talk about my old job on stage yet because it's not funny yet. Like I haven't gotten to the place where I can pull those things out of my experience and make them funny. But I talk about literally everything. And I was wondering do you ever find yourself in that place like creatively where you're like, there is something there, but I can't like say it yet. And then when do you know when you're done? Or I guess my question is like, are there things where you just can't do? Like that you just can't talk about?
So 2 years ago in 2017 when I released Corazon, I didn't know I was pregnant. And then about a month after, I had a miscarriage. And so the whole time after my book release, which was supposed to be the happiest time in my life, I was faced with the decision of whether I was going to keep a child, or what I was going to do, and then having the miscarriage and finding out that pregnancies are difficult. It was this whole thing, right? And then usually I write through things, but now being someone whose work travels a lot further from herself than it was when I first began sharing my work, I was like, am I ready for people to know this about me? Like, me and the would-be father haven't even really talked about it. Like, it was just a lot. The relationship was strained, and it was just a lot, right? Like, and how do I write about this and be responsible to myself? Because I don't know what's going to happen if I'm sitting on stage reading a poem about how I can't be a mom. Like, it's too close. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so for the Olive Corazon, I didn't talk about it. And I didn't address it until I wrote Tesoro, which is my second book. And at the release, I did the poem. And I remember thinking afterwards, I wasn't ready to share that with an audience. Because it changed, like, it didn't ruin the night for me, but it, like, in that moment, it took me so much reading other poems. I was still trying to go back to myself, that I learned that if I'm not ready, it's okay. It's totally fine. And some things don't need to be talked about, and you're not being dishonest. Like, who the fuck deserves to know that I had a fucking miscarriage? Nobody else other than me and the father. And like, and I don't owe, I mean, I love y'all, but I don't owe you that information, you know? And so it was a hard lesson to learn, but I've moved on. Like, now coming forward, like, there's things sometimes where I'm like, oh, it's not time yet to tell that story, or I can't do that responsibly right now, because either I don't know if I'm going to be okay if I do, or it's going to affect other people that I don't know if they're going to be okay if I share this story about them. And yeah, I've had to learn the hard way, but yeah.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. Like, I mean, all these questions are a great question, but I think about that one a lot. And so, like, 2 years ago for me, right, had the first in what ended up being like a series of psychotic breaks, whimsical, fun, mental health stuff. No, it's terrible. And, like, found out I'm bipolar 1 and all this stuff. And, like, I mean, it's just still not funny. Like, I mean, like, I wrote a book about it. Like, The Blind Pig is a lot about someone losing their mind and grip on reality and everything. And there are, like, elements of it that I find humorous, that I'm like, oh my God, this bitch, like, me as this bitch is wild and mentally ill and being wild, and like, Christ. And sometimes I have to laugh about it, because it's like, there's nothing else to be done about it. You know, that's where the laughter is the curative, is the comedy, all that shit. But there's some parts of it that I'm like, yeah, nah, that ain't, I'm into the grave with that one. That's okay. And it's really all right, because you need these boundaries to be a sane person, right? Like, you need the boundary of, like, I will not share this so I can go home and make food and take a shower and watch Mad Men again for the 19th time. Like, I need to not say it so I can be myself. And I think that's totally fair.
And also, to be transparent, both Aziza and I come from slam, right?
Yeah.
Where in slam, I'm not going to generalize the whole slam community, but a lot of times you find yourself wanting to write about the most shocking things in your life, because it'll shock the judges into giving you higher scores and all, like, you know, and like, you're trying to move 5 random people as much as you can. So you try to think of what the most moving things possible.
Yeah.
And so you're like unearthing like all these, oh, I could write about the time that this guy came up to me with a gun, you know, like, and then you're like, why are you doing that to yourself?
Yeah.
And so taking a step back and looking at, having done 3 books and looking at what the larger stories are, you realize that sometimes more of the story is the little stories in between, right? Like the small moments, like the bus ride. It wasn't the thing that happened, it was the bus ride to the thing that happens that makes it more interesting. It was all these things. So we don't need to go around like telling everybody our deepest, darkest secrets. Sometimes we can tell the things around it and stuff. And I know that in comedy it's also the same, right? Like when you're trying to tell stories, we're all telling stories about what people are going to connect with the most. Yeah. And usually pain is something that people go to really quickly, right? Because we all hurt, like heartbreak. Y'all love heartbreak poems. But sometimes that's not, you can't go up there and laugh about your ancient boyfriend, because you're still going to go home and call him.
And no, you can do it.
I mean, you know,
Or maybe you have to laugh because you know you're gonna call him. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Yeah,
tricky.
you gotta laugh
I
because you
mean,
know you're gonna call.
every time I do a new book, I'm like, yeah, me and him broke, and then the next book, well.
So what had happened was.
So what happened was when I wrote this one, I thought it was over, but it wasn't. But when I wrote this one, I thought it was over, but it wasn't. But now it's really, and it's not.
And that's when you get to say fun shit like, you know, life isn't linear. It's all like cyclical. Yeah.
You know, just because someone can't love you how you want them to love you doesn't make them a bad person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bitch,
All that
he
shit.
hasn't been loving you.
Yeah.
That's okay. Sorry, we went off on a tangent. Next question.
All right, this is the last question of the night. If you have lingering questions, there is a signing afterward. Don't forget.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I really see a lot of my Salvadorian life in you. And I just wanted to ask, we talked a lot about family, and I know you talk a lot about the past, but I was hoping you can talk about the future. And what do you wish your niece and nephew learn from your poems, and they take forward?
So I have. Do you have any nibblings?
I have a nephew, my wee nibbling. His name is Rory. He's very
How old?
sweet. He's 18 months.
Oh,
He's literally my favorite person.
is he walking yet?
He's walking. He now brushes his own 6 teeth. It's very cute. It's a whole situation.
I miss when Henry couldn't walk because he couldn't run from me.
Yeah. Well, now they're just like away.
No, it's like,
Yeah, the people.
Come back to me.
Yeah.
So I have an 8-year-old niece named Saya, who Hermosa is dedicated to, and I have a 7. I'm like naming other kids that don't exist. I have a 3-year-old nephew, Henry, and they're my sister's kids, and I'm one of 3 sisters, and my sister's an extension of me. Blah blah blah. Like they're my kids, and it's hard, right? Like to raise kids, especially one of them is half white. If you look at my Instagram, you realize which one it is. It's the boy. So I'm like, you got patriarchy and whiteness trying to claim you. We really have to try hard with you. But like, I just hope that just through their seeing me soar, they never fear to jump. You know, like my niece went to my book release and she sat in the front row. She maybe didn't know what was happening part of the time, but she knows that she wants to come back to the next one because she got recognized by people and they were taking pictures of her. But like now, and she tells people that she has a famous tia. And so like she knows that the world to live in, that a fat woman gets to do all the things that I get to do. I didn't have that growing up, and it makes me so excited that that my niece and nephew get to see themselves so represented in this world. Oh, it makes me even want to cry. Because, like, I mean, people like us, right? Like, we never got to... When did we ever go somewhere and see someone that looks like us?
It was rare.
Yeah.
It was just rare. And then when you did, you went like, oh my God, and you didn't let go. Yeah.
Like, I found Sandra Cisneros, and I was building churches for her, you know?
Yeah. Who did I find? I feel like I found, weirdly enough, not weird at all, but like I remember finding Frida Kahlo and just being like, a shorty like me a little bit, like kind of gay a little bit, like kind of trying to do this art thing, like... hairy, like I was very perturbed.
Yeah. And it's so exciting to know that we live in a world where people could, like, all you have to do is go online to find a reflection of you somewhere. And I just hope that I don't want to give them the burden of my dreams for them. I want them to do whatever it is that they want to do. I just want them to be good people. Well-rounded people, and I want Saya to be a badass little girl, and I want Henry to be a kind man if he goes and decides he's a man. But and I want them to be able to just do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Yeah, man.
And
well said.
minimal trauma too.
Yeah. if we could take that to the minimumest level possible.
Yeah.
And just let them just be like, when I think of my nephew, I think just like black boy joy, like black boy free, like, you know, if he chooses to be a boy. Right now he seems to be choosing heavily toward things that are presenting that way. And to have, like, I was scared as fuck to have like a little black boy in the world. Like, that terrified me, because people just kill them, and it's just like another day, you know, as we all know. And so it's this hard line of wanting to just like shelter them from everything forever, but then knowing that like the reason that we get to be here and do shit like this is that we had to hit some things, and some things had to hit us. And like, I think for my little nibbling, what I want is like, I just pray the things that hit you don't completely take you out, but that you get to like incorporate how you want them to live in you. And do your thing.
That's so beautiful. And Julia Alvarez said to Sandra Cisneros recently, she said, Sandra, the seeds we planted are starting to bloom. And that made me cry so hard, because I was just like, bitch, what? I'm a flower. But like, that's what it is, right?
That's
like
love. That's love.
Like, our elders made us possible, and like, just to think of what we're making possible, like, just in 20 years, I'll be sitting here and be like, the seeds.
Just weeping.
Remember the seeds?
All right, we gotta like already make a date 20 years from now.
Yes, 20 years
come
from
back
now,
to
we're
the Strand and cry.
Yes, and then we're going to cry, and y'all going to come and bring your kids, okay?
Yep.
Thank you so much for having
you.
us.